Felt the Lord's been speaking to me about this, and so I'm just going to scratch the surface. I did a teaching years ago about the wisdom of money, and as we move along here, I'd like to get somebody feels that led to have that ministry kind of thing. I'd like to have some duplication of tastes. I got a six gang duplicator, and I would like to start duplicating some CDs or DVDs or whatever to hand out so guys can listen to it during the week in their car. But anyways, this is a kind of a spreading of the wisdom of money. This is a touch of it. This is a little bit of an outline. This is how I start my teaching. I come up with a little bit of a scripture, and then I start developing it as I move along. But I'm doing this so that you guys can have a little bit of something to study. Okay, and I will kind of add a little bit of flesh to these bones tonight, and it's something that's really been a burden in my heart. It's something the Lord taught me a long time ago. And it's the one thing that I can attribute. Now there's other things, but it's the one thing that's most significant that I can attribute to the things that God has blessed me with. Now I can't override the step of faith that you have to take. You're never going to be without that. And the risk and the potential fear and the potential struggle and the potential things, because folks, that is what God uses to change you from being nothing to being like Him. Because that's where we all were. None of us got raised properly. None of us had the perfect situation. And whatever your extreme, and people, people hang on to those kind of excuses and the monkey business and all the hoopla and the crap. There's always some excuse for whatever it is that you've got. Okay? And the Lord spoke to me back there, and He said, you tell them to quit talking about their problems. You'll never break free from your circumstance if you talk about your problem. You got to make a decision in your heart to quit talking about your problem. You got to talk about who He is. He's the solution. And when you talk about your problem, you just keep hearing it. And when you got your mouth running, it's hard to guard your ears, isn't it? Because everything you're saying, you're hearing. It's pretty hard to guard it, isn't it? And God says, guard your ears and guard your heart, for out of the heart comes all the issues of life. Now, how are you going to do that if you got your mouth running and you're talking about your problems? You're hearing it, and God says, wait a minute. You're killing yourself, man. Power, life, and destiny in your tongue, you're killing yourself. What are you doing that for? Can you not make a decision in your heart to say, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to talk about my problem. I'm not going to talk about my circumstance. And I'm not going to talk about all the people that hurt me and all the people that did wrong and did that, yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. Because that's what it amounts to. Nothing. There's no solution to it. There's no help. There's no benefit. There's no security. There's nothing in talking about your problem and all the people in your life that screwed you up. Because you are the total controller of your life, and if somebody screwed you up, it's because you let them. My one great strength is I don't let anybody influence me. Not friend or foe. I treat them both the same. You say, well, you mean you treat your enemies like you do friends? Yeah, I do. I only have one person I answer to. And you need to do the same. You do not allow anybody to influence you apart from the Word of God. Whether it's an anointed teacher or who it is. I'm not here to lead you and guide you in a sense. The Bible says, he that is led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. So if what you're hearing is not coming from the Spirit of God, then you don't listen to it. I don't want to be responsible for you. You're responsible to God. That's the only person you need to answer to. And He's the one that will see you through. He's the one who will be there when things are really, really dark. And everything looks like it's gone away. And every friend seems to have forsaken you. And every circumstance looks like it's absolutely impossible. He's the one that will fix it. I can't do it. But I can encourage you that He will. I can tell you how He does it. I can tell you how He did it in my life. And it ain't any different for me than it is for you. But I'm not your Lord. I'm a teacher. And teachers, if they're a good one, they'll tell you about their experience and how this works. Now, that ain't what you get in high school and it ain't what you get in college. I'm sorry. Because 90% of everything you hear in high school and college, not one of them has ever made anything work. And we wonder why we're way beyond the 20, was it too many years ago, we were rated 19th in the world in our education. You say, well, how do you know that? They take the same test. And the NEA, National Education Association, National Education Association says, we're going to fix that. We're going to improve on that. 10 years later, they were 25th in the world. They really fixed it. And it's worse than that now. And we spend so much of our time thinking about education. And, whoa, got to get our kids educated. Well, you need to be careful about that. Now, unless you are in certain professions, I mean, Mark, you're not ever going to be a doctor. You got it? Except when you lay hands on people. Yeah. Become Dr. Mark.
Yeah.
Isn't that exciting? That we don't need to depend on that. That we can depend on someone that's greater than all that. Amen. Someone who is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. That's who we pay homage to. That's who we provide our stewardship to. Bible says, do everything. How much? Heartily as unto the Lord, and not unto man. But who gets the benefit? Man does. Does God want your tithe? What's He going to do with it? I mean, I've read some reports of people who've gone to heaven. They say they don't know what's on these streets, but they're pure jasper all the way through, like, you know. And there's some places the gold is like so pure The streets are paved with gold. What does he want your tithe for? You know what he wants? He wants your heart. Because that's the one thing he can't violate. He can bring you gold, silver. He can bring you so many things. Business, success, blessing. He can do it all. But the one thing he can't do, he can't take your heart. He can't do it. He's bound by his word. And this is what we don't understand about God. How many times have you heard Christians say, why doesn't God do something? Why doesn't God fix this election? Why doesn't God fix this problem? Why doesn't God fix my family? Why doesn't God fix my marriage? Why doesn't God meet our needs? Why doesn't God pay for my home mortgage? Why doesn't God pay for the bills that I got and my credit cards and my yada, 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 yada? He's never going to do that. Did you hear me? You know what never means? He's never going to do it. He's not going to get involved with that. But what he will do, he's wrote a set of laws and a set of rules. He said, if you will follow them, the system that I developed has to follow in line. Because I watch over my word, he says, to perform it. It has to follow in line. It has to do what I have designed it to do. He ain't sitting there going, now I'm telling you do this, do this. No, he just wrote it down once. And that settles it. It's done. He put it in a manual. And he says, if you study it and you put it in your heart and you work it and you do it and you keep at it and you're consistent and you don't quit and you don't give up and you keep going and you keep getting up in the morning and you keep praising him and you keep thanking him and you quit talking about all the garbage out there and all the election stuff and all the monkey business that don't have one single thing to do with you. The system that he designed and developed will work for you. And you have to work it. It's called stewardship. That's what it's called. Let me read you what a steward is. He is the man employed in a great family. Sounds familiar? You employed in a great family?
Great.
It's fun to be in this family, isn't it? Your job is to manage the domestic concerns, superintend and other servants, collect the rents or income, keep the accounts, etc. Genesis 15:2 and 43:19. You are an officer of the state as Lord High Steward, a minister of Christ whose duty is to dispense the provisions of the gospel to which its doctrines and administer its ordinances. It says it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. My question to the guy that's complaining all the time and always griping and complaining about God and why don't God do this and why don't God do that and why don't he help me here and help me there? You know what my question is? Oh, you poor guy. I feel so sorry for you. Let's all sit here and cry and maybe God will move for us. Let's just cry and bawl and squall and say, oh my goodness, I mean, I just can't believe how horrible you got it in life. That's just horrible. Now, what did I just do for him? No, I did do something.
Yeah, negative.
I just drove him in the ground farther. Have you ever take a sledgehammer and drive a stake in the ground?
Yeah.
Or a stake in the ground? Have you ever done that, Caleb? what happens every time you hit it with a sledgehammer?
Goes further.
Just get a little deeper. Just a little farther. That's what you do to yourself. That's why God says, I want you to live the high life. I made you a steward. But you got to act like one. You understand? You got to act like one. You say, well, I'd be phony if I started doing that. Well, God's Bible says God called those things that be not as though they were. So you calling him a liar? Huh? I wouldn't be doing that. If he called those things that be not as though they were, then you can. And when you got that circumstance facing you, smacking you in the face and telling you you're not going to make it and you're going to go down and you're going to lose everything you got, you're going to lose your family, your kids, your grandkids, and all the dogs in the neighborhood, you're going to lose them all. You got to say,
No.
You've got to make a decision that I'm not going to look at that. I'm going to look at this. What does this say? Do you think that's easy? Do you think that's easy? Seems easy. But when your brain's going the wrong way as fast as you know how it can go, it's not easy to grab that book and start reading it. Because sometimes all you read in here is so-and-so begat so-and-so and he died, and so-and-so begat so-and-so and he died, and so-and-so begat so-and-so and he died, and oh my gosh. That really helps me.
Bless Israel, you'll be blessed. That's why the election's coming our way. I'm standing on that. I can't accept anything else. Sorry.
You don't need to be sorry. We're all agreeing with you. Bottom line, we need to be stewards of what God's given us. And we need to believe. You know, my daughter called me up, or my wife and I up, and you guys know she has a pretty high position in one of the federal agencies in Washington. She has 1,500 employees now that has to answer to her. And she controls everything that you've been hearing on the news for the last month. She's on top of all that. All the emails and texts and technology and everything. But she was talking to us and she said, Dad, I want to ask you something. I said, okay. I've known you all my life. And she said, it doesn't matter which way this election goes. I want to ask you something. Yeah? She says, is your life going to change if it goes one way or the other? And I said, no. My life isn't going to change. They may take more taxes out of my income. They may try and steal our certain things, if indeed they get control. And I agree with John. That's not how I'm believing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But I'm trying to give you a mindset that it isn't about that.
Right.
It's about your relationship. Mm-hmm. It's about what you believe. Okay? God didn't give you the power. You know, I listened to one prophet. This is a guy from India, and he's had a long beard and white hair and wears an orange gown. And he's a born again Muslim. And he's a prophet. And one of the things he said, Christians, you need to wake up. And he said, if you let this election slide and you don't do your job, he said America will go downhill. And he said, and it will never recuperate. Because once it slides in that area, the Islamic and all the negative stuff. But see, I don't care. I'm not in disagreement with him. I'm not going to argue with anybody. I'm just saying I'm going to be at peace because I know whom I am believed, and I am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I have committed unto him against that day. Well, what day is he talking about? The day I'm gone. I'm telling you, some of the greatest revival times have come when everything looks like it's falling apart. My greatest experiences in this life have come through situations that were absolutely impossible. There's no possible way I could have won that situation. There's no way. But God. Because one day, if you learn to never give up, the Democrats and the Republicans won't have an influence on your life. Jesus will. Because I don't agree with a lot of the Republicans.
Absolutely. Amen.
I don't know where the Democrats are coming from. Lord knows where they're coming from. But I don't see a whole lot better in the Republicans. They're just a little different problem because they just don't care about anything. It seems. There's a few, but as a group, they're not united. So I just look at it and say, you're never going to stop corruption. You're never going to stop problems. If you think I'm wrong, let me take you through the whole Old Testament. And I'll show you one king did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the next king did good. Then the next 5 did evil in the sight of the Lord, and then the 6th one did good. And what makes the difference? What makes the difference? Do you know how many recessions I've been through? I went through the greatest recession Lima has ever experienced. It was called the Great Depression in Lima, Ohio. It started in late 1979 and ended in 1986. You know one of the greatest 6-year growth periods in my life was? You know why? Because by faith, I was out buying stuff for pennies on the dollar and didn't have a penny. I just did it. Till I got this property. Till I got my farms. I just did it. I just said, here I go. And God says, son, I put a smile on his face. He said, I'm going to make a way where there is no way. He said, I am. Not me, him. I prospered more. It was amazing. So see, you can't come and talk to me because I know my experience. I know what happened. You know, you look at the race relationships. How in the world are we ever going to get through this? Just teach people about Jesus. And all that stuff will go away. It's not going to go away in the world. But the Bible says don't be conformed to the world. But be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind and prove that which is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. You don't focus on that. You focus on this. You make a decision individually. I can't go talk to everybody in the world. Maybe someday we'll be on the radio or TV or something and we could cover a lot of it. But bottom line is I can't in the natural. Unless something supernatural happens. But I do know that I can trust Him to get me through every situation. I can trust Him to put me in a place where if something don't happen supernaturally, I'm gone. But I always stay in the supernatural. I always stay in the Word. This is my job to you guys. It's my job to teach you to be in this book, to be in this Word, and find out or listen to my tapes or listen to somebody else's tapes that's saying something that makes some sense, and make sure that you keep a diet of that. That's how I did it. I mean, I'm rushing through my mind all the different times. I just stayed in the Word. I didn't listen to I didn't even own a television for my first 10 years of marriage. I didn't want anything to do with it. I just didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want to hear anything they had to say. Because I found out I was really in a tough situation, but as long as they weren't telling me, I didn't even know I was. You think I'm kidding? You go listen to CNN and CBS and even Fox News is just as bad.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're all intellectual. That doesn't fix nothing. You don't have the power of God and the supernatural. You're stuck in the world. And that's the best you're going to get. If you haven't got some great education from an Ivy League school, you're probably not going to have major increases. Because that's what the world does. But we're not over there. That's not what we're living in. I've had so many people say, "Hey, Steve, what kind of education you got?" And I'll say, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, do you have an architect's degree or a engineer's degree or all the stuff you're doing? What degree do you have that you're able to do all this?" And I said, "Zero, nada, nothing." I said, when I was at college, I was a survivor. He said, "What do you mean?" "I mean, I got a perfect 2.0 when I graduated. I survived it. I wasn't tearing nothing up. I was surviving it. And I got by. You know why? Because 2 years earlier, I wanted to quit, and I decided I'm going to stick it out. I'm not going to quit anything in my life. I don't know where that came from. I just decided I'm going to do it. And I stuck with it till I got it. I mean, it wasn't pretty. But I got it. So, but you know what? You know what I've used to get me where I am? Nothing. Nothing from the educational world. No. I could have started it when I was 17 years old and done the same thing. Instead, I paid my way through college for 6 years. I go out and work for 2 quarters, take the money, go to school for a quarter. Drop out, go to work for 2 quarters, go to school for 2 quarters. Drop out, go to work for 3 quarters one time. Then I go back and I go to school for a couple quarters. Took me 6 years. But I did it. And I never quit. And nobody ever heard me complain. Ever. I did it. Because I was determined in my heart. I start something, I finish it. How many of your friends quit everything they've ever tried? How many? Start this, you quit. Start that, you quit. Well, this ain't working. And they, every single one of them, they got about 6 or 8 excuses. Well, this didn't work out because I needed more money. And this didn't work out because of this. And this didn't work out because of that. All worldly stuff. 99% of them would never say anything about the Word. They've never come to the Word. Now, I'm talking about the people I know. They come to this book, or back up. They tell you all the reasons why it don't work, and none of them come to the Word. They don't give you evidence. What's your evidence that what you're doing is failing? Who told you that? Well, my friends and I were talking in the coffee shop. Oh, really? At Thanksgiving time, we were talking about why things don't work. At Christmas time, we talk about how much money you need if you're ever going to go into business for yourself. They give you all the reasons, and you listen to it. You listen to it. I didn't say you to be enemies there, it's just ignore them. Turn around and go somewhere else. You don't have, look. There. You know, you got to have sewage in your house, but you don't need to live in it. Just flush it. Bye. And you're more interested in your body than you are your spirit or your mind, your soul. And yet you let your soul live in sewage all the time, living in it. Stinks. It'll kill you if it gets the wrong sewage. But your body, oh no, you never let that happen. You got to take the showers and got to, da. But you let your soul live in sewage all the time. Your soul is in a third world. It's like in some place in Africa or Ethiopia or Afghanistan. That's where you got your soul all the time. Some kind of desert place that nothing's there, nothing's growing, nothing's working, nothing's happening, and that's how you believe your life is. Afghanistan. That's what your life is like. That's not stewardship. A man employed in a great family to manage the domestic concerns, superintend and other servants, the other servants, collect rents or income, keep the accounts, etc., etc., etc. That's what a steward is. That don't sound like a guy living in Afghanistan, but that's where most Christians' minds are. All they can see is worthlessness and failure. Nothing's going on there. You know, it's amazing to me. All these Islamic people want to come to the United States, and they want to have their way here, right? And I look at it and I say, well, what kind of country did you guys have? Well, and you want to bring that over here? What would you want to do? Because they got this thing about the United States is just, if just anybody comes, then anybody can have it. They don't think about the people that died for it. They don't think about the people who struggled for it, the people who walked in faith, and the people who walked in all the different things that we've had to fight for and struggle for and work toward. They don't know anything about that. They just think it's just America. And if you just come over here, we'll be wealthy. So they want to bring all their garbage over here and bring all their religions over here, and they have no clue that it's the religion of Jesus Christ that made this work. They don't have any idea.
It's true.
And then the Democrats and Republicans, and I'm on both of them.
Yeah.
They just tolerate it. They think it's cute. They think it's okay. They won't fight for anything. I don't want men like that. I don't want you here if you're going to be that way. Go somewhere else. I'm wasting my time here. But if you're going to say, let God be true and every man a liar, if you're willing to say that, and you're willing to listen to what God has taught me, it won't be long and you'll be walking in it. But it ain't going to come easy. And it isn't going to be handed to you. You're going to have to take it. The violent take it by force. You have to take it. I'm not talking about hurt people and beat people up. I'm not talking about that. Put your sword away.
Spiritual.
I'm talking about you've got to take it. The devil has control over it and you've got to take it from him.
Spirit fight.
And it'll have somebody's name on it. But my Bible says in the latter days, we're going to prosper immensely. The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the me. Well, I don't care how you figure it. I don't care how you think about it. I'm just telling you, this is what it says. So you want to live in this nothingness world that you guys have been living in for the last X amount of years? You want to live in that? Help yourself. But that's not what I'm teaching. So when you come here, you know you need to be ready to listen to something that makes sense as far as winning. Because that's what I talk about. I talk about what is stewardship. God has placed us in a position to be conquerors. But we got to walk in it. We got to live like it. We got to think like it. We got to act like it. And you can't act like it if you're not thinking like it. Because your body is going to go where your brain tells it. And if your brain's saying something wrong, you're in trouble. You're going to get sick. You're going to have every kind of a problem you can imagine. And you're in trouble because you're listening to your soul. And God says, I want you to renew that mind. I want you to find out what I have to say, and I want you to apply that to your life. I want you to believe it. Well, brother, don't you understand? I can't figure that out. Well, I have nothing going on in my life. Nothing's going to work. Nothing's ever going to happen for me. I said, you're right. Just keep doing what you're doing, and you'll be there 40 years from now. Maybe worse. Because you know, once you get along about 60, the devil's convinced the United States that that's when you start getting sick. Can you find that in the book? Well, your body's falling apart, and you know what? How old you're supposed to live? 120. The devil has convinced us because we have sold out to guys like Fauci, who is the mass dude. We turned the whole United States over to a doctor, one man. And everybody now is living in that fear. I went into Panera Bread today. I like their coffee.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. Wayne says, it's all right. It's okay. I went into Panera Bread and the lady says, do you have a mask? She's waiting on me at the counter. I said, no. Well, she grabbed one. She said, here, you got to put this on so you can talk to me. I said, really? I got to put that on and talk to you? Yes, she said, I'm not allowed to talk to you unless you have a mask on. I said, okay, give it here. So I put it on. So we kind of ordered everything. And when we were done, I said, here, you can have your mask back. And I went down because I'd already paid her. She's got to give me the food. Mm-hmm. I don't do that to play a game. They're the ones playing the game. I'm not.
Right. Yes, they are.
How many times? You all listen to television. How many times have you ever heard Tucker Carlson, CNN, any of the Fox News, any of those other people, have you ever heard any of them say, well, wonder what the Bible has to say about that? Have you ever heard it? What? You think those men are strong enough to stand and believe this on their own? They're not, are they? That's why you're going to see these guys crumble. Tucker's already crumbled, and he was that righteous guy, man. But all of a sudden, this guy looks like he's getting weak. I mean, I can't fix it. You know what? If I could just have 15 minutes with the President of the United States and have him put me on national news, I think I could give those people something to believe in, something to hope for. But you know what? I can't even get people in alignment to do it. How am I going to get the whole United States? So the Lord said to me, said, that's not your responsibility. I said, okay, I got it. And I know that because if I felt that was my responsibility, I'd be depressed. I'd be discouraged. It'd be easy to be defeated. Because I would look at it and say, I'm not doing my job. And God says, if you feel that way, he says, how do you think I feel? He's not getting it done either, is he? And he's creator of the universe. Because he leaves the affairs of this earth into the hands of man.
Yes.
And he doesn't violate it.
Right.
He only lets people like us take this book, hide the word in our hearts, and begin to demonstrate it just to the people around us. And if we can do this enough, it'll start growing. Do you understand? It'll start growing. That's what stewardship does. That's what I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you how to be a good steward. Steward of what? Your time. Your time with the Lord. I'm trying to teach you to find out what you are. Not what you're going to be. Let's just find out what you are. Find out who you are and walk in it. And don't let people drag you down and suck you in. Walk in it. Do what it says. Believe it. Believe in it. Man, it's something to believe in. I mean, I have people saying, man, we just need something to believe in. I say, oh my gosh, I got the Word of God. Well, yeah, I know about that. Well, I know about all the Word, you know. I mean, how many people you know like that? They already got all the answers. Pride. I know the Bible. I go to church every week. That's much what they want to know. They want real solutions. If we can just get more educated and we can just think a little better and we can just love one another, man, these things would change. No, things would change if people will get into the Word and let it change them. And then it'll change the people around them. It will. If you will start walking in the Word and demonstrating what God did for you to these people. I'm not talking about being a hypocrite. I'm not talking about just blowing smoke all the time. But you know what? You got to start somewhere. You got to know what the Word says. And when somebody says something contrary to it, you got to speak it out to them. You're afraid of offending him? So what's the loss? There is no loss. That's why I've been as bold as a lion for 40 years. I remember a guy there was a guy in town. His name was Jim Blankmeyer. And Jim Blankmeyer, was it Blankmeyer or Blankenmeyer? Anyways, somehow or another the Lord hooked this up. And Jim started a company called Medicoat. And Medicoat became a large company. They had plants all over the world. He started out in his garage. He was a carpenter at 32, cut his finger off right here, and started this powder coating business in his garage. And then it moved out to I-75, and then he bought plants. He bought places in Cleveland, and pretty soon he was all over the world. Wherever Ford Motor Company and General Motors and Chrysler had plants, he had a plant. Because they liked the work he did. And he grew and grew and grew until one day he sold it for over $500 million. A carpenter with a finger cut off. And I remember being in the restaurants and I was preaching to him and I'd preach at him like this for a little bit and then I'd come over here and I'd preach at him like this a little bit and I'd come back here and preach at him a little bit. I'd preach at him a little bit more. I'm serious, I was doing it just like that. Because I was full of the Word, just like I am now. And he looked at me and said, man, I just can't memorize scriptures like you do. You just throw them things out there. That's just amazing. So one day he called me up. You know what he wanted help with? His finances. What? You know how much you're worth, Jim? And you need me to help you? Are you out of your mind? No, he wanted to know my opinion about how this stewardship works. This is 30 years ago probably, or 25. And he's got plants all over the world, and I don't have a house to build. But that's not what I believe. That's not what I believe. And you're not going to receive anything that you don't believe. You understand? If you don't believe for it, you're never going to get it. You have to believe it, or you'll never receive it. That's what we've been talking about for a couple months here. The believing and receiving. Okay? You have to do that. And this I'm kind of running out of time here, so this teaching here, I just highlighted basically verse 10 in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 10. And I just kind of like to brief over a little bit with you. On my businessman's perspective, I'm going to do a whole series on this. Okay? Not right now. I got to finish up Ephesians 1. And I've asked the Lord to quit that a dozen times. He said, I want you to finish it. I said, okay. I learned how to do that. Is that right, Mark? Did we learn how to do that? We finish what we start? Yes. So I'm going to finish it. Ephesians chapter 1. I learned how to do it. I'm going to do it. I can't understand it. Makes no sense to me. And God says, that's okay, son. Trust in me with all your heart and don't lean to your understanding, because you're always going to get yourself screwed up. I said, got it. So I don't need to figure it all out. I don't need to understand it all. I just need to know what it says. And I need to hide it in my heart, like Psalms 119, 105, and Psalms 19 around 14, 15 says, a word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against him. What's sin? Doubt. Doubt. And whatsoever is not of faith is sin. And what did he say? Thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not doubt against thee. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my pathway. Whoa. So it isn't, my friends, with all their education, with all their intellect and all their figuring out and they all go to church, and that's the hook. Well, they go to church, they must know what they're talking about. But you know what? Most of the people in church have no idea who they are, where they are, why they're going there. Because they don't know the Bible. They just have a warm and fuzzy every time they go there. Because they've always done it. That's a great reason, isn't it? You know what that gets you? Nowhere. Okay, this is a message that I've kind of alluded to a couple times in here on the wisdom of money. Okay? And it's found in the 10th verse. Now this is the New International Version, okay? This is when God opened my eyes, and this is why I study in more than one version of the Bible. I usually try and do the bulk of my study. I use 27 versions when I do my businessman's perspective, but there's about 8 of them that I use consistently, okay? And the NIV, when I first really started getting in the Word, I read the New American Standard Version. And the reason why is because Moody Bible Institute, who have a lot of Greek scholars, said this is probably the most accurate of all translations. So I bought into that. I'm not saying that was wrong. I just started reading the New American Standard. I didn't read the King James. And I read it to the point that I wore it out and it's all duct taped together. But man, was God using it in my life. I was a walking word. I still am. I haven't changed. I've matured a little bit, but I still believe the same things, still believe the same book, believe the same promises, because he gave us his precious and magnificent promises that we might become a partaker of his divine nature, having escaped the corruption that's in the world through lust. God says, I give you my promises and my benefits so you don't have to lust after anything. I'll provide for you. But you have to believe me. And you have to trust that I know when it's best for you. Because if he releases something in your life and you're not ready for it, it's going to cause you harm. Big time. That's true of money, which is what we're talking about here. That's why most Christians don't have a lot of money. They've never been good stewards. Sorry about that. They've never been good stewards. They don't understand it. They've never been givers. They never thought about the money that they have doesn't belong to them. All they think about is like, I get more money and I can get a bigger house and get a finer car, and if I can get my kids sent to a nicer school, and if I could just make sure my house is better than the neighbors, and if I could just get myself ahead of everybody, and we can just get to a place in our lives where we can just do nothing and sit around and not have to be responsible for anything and live like kings. That's what they think about. Nothing in there about stewardship. You know what stewardship is? It's that every penny that you own and every penny you make doesn't belong to you. That's stewardship. Read it again. A man employed in a great family. You're employed. You're a steward. You're a steward of what God has. You know, it's not all about, I'm going to get all I can, sit on my can, and live like a king. You know, that's not what it's about. It's about stewardship. It's about being blessed to be a blessing. That's what it's about. Mm-hmm. And if you learn how to do that, He'll put more in your hands. He did it to me. Because there were times that I gave away everything I had. I didn't think about it. Didn't want to do it. But He asked me to, I think, at the time, and I did it. Everything I had. And I had 3 kids, dog, house, car, and I gave it all. Didn't have a 401k, didn't have a savings account, didn't have a special investment program, and yada, 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 and whatever else that people have their security in. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things. I'm saying if you have security in that, it's never going to be a benefit to you. Because you're going to hang on to it till you go to the grave. And somebody's going to enjoy it. And it ain't going to be you. And it ain't going to be much anyways. So your kids will just squander it. And this is what stewardship is about. And let me read this to you. I got 5 minutes. So you're going to do a lot of homework. Now He who supplies seed to the sower, what are you working for? What are you working for? Why is that important? See, if you got this thing in your head that you got $500 coming in this week, and the government's going to take, they're going to take $100 of it, and I'm going to be only left with $4, and I'm trying to buy that new car, or I'm trying to make my payments, trying to make my house payment, my car payment, my dog payment, my cat payment, my horse payment, my hay payment, my barn payment, my credit card payment. Man, you're in trouble. Never done any of them. I don't know anything about any of those. I know about paying off my credit card, but I don't know nothing about payments. Never made a house payment or anything of that. Don't make car payments. Don't make credit card payments. I don't make any kind of payments. You know why? Because all that interest goes in my pocket for the kingdom, because I'm a good steward. I'm not foolish with what I have. And the Bible says unless you learn to be faithful in the little things, you will never be made ruler over much. And I said, I want to be ruler over much. I am going to do it. And I did that when I was younger than every single person here. I was 25 years old. Anybody younger than that? Well, in faith, you're like 3. May not be a good place to be. Okay. Now he who supplies seed to the sower. What are you doing when you go working? This is not, God does not put a dollar tree out in the middle of your backyard where you go out there and you just pluck off dollars. You know what he does? He gives you opportunity. See, when I raised my kids, I never gave my kids money. You know what I gave them? An opportunity. Well, what do you mean, Dad? Well, if you want that ball glove, you're going to work for it. I'll give you an opportunity. I'll pay you for it. But I'm going to tell you what you're going to do to get it. I had the money to buy the sporting goods store, let alone the ball glove. But that isn't how I did it. I made them work for it. You know what they're doing today? Multi-millionaires. You know what they're doing today? They're still working for it. They're still working for it. One of them's 38 years old and he don't have to work for anything. But he's still working for it. Because he doesn't see it that way. It's about how much money you got. It's how much money you can do something with. That's stewardship. That's being faithful with what you have. But you think you're going to get this great big thing going on and you're going to make this big multi-million-dollar deal. You know what? Ain't going to happen. Never. Ever. You know what you're going to have? Huge loss. And it will probably take you down. Remember that friend I was telling you about? He needed that $150,000. He'd already put like $250,000 in it. He put his house up for sale, sold in 2 days. And I'm sure he thinks that was a direction from the Lord. What's going to happen? He's going to be renting an apartment. And you're going to be living in an apartment. Some dumpy little 500 square foot deal. You're going to pull your wife out of her house and you're going to put her in an apartment. Because he thinks some African country is going to give him $3.9 million to build a highway. And he wouldn't know how to build a highway if it come up to him in a red hat.
Make Africa great again.
You think that's stupid?
No, sir.
That's pretty stupid, yeah.
To the max. But I can't fix it. I thought about it, I prayed about it, had nothing. I can't fix it. I had friends, several friends, who got into one of these Ponzi schemes. And this guy was a Christian over on the East Coast, and he if you give him money, he'll pay you 10% a month on it. And they put that whole deal together, and I went around to every one of my friends and said, you got to get out of that thing, man. That thing's you're going to lose it all. You got to get out of it. You know how many of them listened to me? I had some really close friends that you guys know. They didn't have the money to lose. 2 weeks later, they lost it all. You think you're going to have a quick way of making money?
Little by little.
It ain't going to come from God. You know what? The devil will even let you do it for a season. But you know what you'll do if that happens? You just keep doing it. And then he nails you. And then he gets you up so high because you think about, look at all this money I got. And all of a sudden, it's gone. It's gone. You ever heard of a guy named Bernie Madoff?
Yep.
The con artist in New York? He had people's millions and millions of dollars. There was a man in Florida who owned $275 million. He had 200 million of it in Bernie's hands, and it was worth like 6 times that, over $1 billion. You know how much money Bernie had to back that up? None of it. He had billions and billions of dollars, and he had like $50 million. Because people buy into it, and their greed sets them up, and they just get into it, and then they see this return on this real specialized software program, and you just buy into this garbage. And you know what? You know what this man that lost, when Bernie went down, he lost $200 million. Do you know what he did? He killed himself. Living in Florida in a very, very wealthy community. You know why? You say, well, my gosh, he had $25 million left. Yeah, that's because you're thinking about you. Mm-hmm. You're thinking about who you are. Because in your mind, man, if I just had $500,000, it might be good. You know, my gosh, 25 minutes, but that ain't how he sees it. Because the devil won't let you see it that way. Because you didn't get it the right way. The devil will deceive you. And you think it's a joke? I'm telling you, you can go down. And you will. If you don't get it the way we're talking about here. If you don't look at those little seeds that come in every week and say, Father, you're the God of multiplication. You're the God that blesses. You're the God that blesses the seed. And the seed that I earn every week, see, don't say this money I earn. It's seed. If you're a born-again Christian, you need to look at the money that you make, and you need to look at it as seed, because seed, it multiplies. And money doesn't. It only goes as far as money goes. But seed multiplies. God's behind it. It says it right here in this verse. And you're going to have to take the time to read most of it, because I'm not going to get through even this verse. Now, he who supplies seed to the sower. Now, what does that mean?
For the sower.
You're the sower, and he provides you with seed. And what are you doing with the seed that you have? Whatever it is you're doing. I don't care how small. I don't care how big. It's seed. And seed is designed by God to multiply. But if you give something and you begrudge it, it's dead. You'll never get a return on it. It's over. You just killed your seed. You threw it on the sidewalks and in the stony places. But it was your heart that was the problem, because that's what that whole story talks about. The soil is your heart. Mm-hmm. And so God wants us to not only think about what we have coming in, if it's $10 or $10,000. You should always be thinking in terms of a tithe. Because a tithe was not a part of the original law. It was before the law. It was from Abraham's perspective. Because Abraham gave a tithe to the king of Sodom. He gave a tithe. They went out and fought a battle. So God wants you to tithe. And he says, if you will get into it, I will do more with your 90 than you can do with your 100. But you know, in my life, I've never considered a tithe. I've never given a tithe. I give exceedingly abundantly above anything that you can ask or think, according to the power that works in me. What power is that? The ability to do it.
because we want to hang on to it. We want to grab it. We want to can it. We want to put it in our pockets, put it in our banks, and hoard it, because you never know when you're going to have a rainy day. Oh my gosh, we got to have some money for a rainy day. Don't you understand? No. I'm not sure what you mean. What is a rainy day? Well, you know, when things happen and you just need some money. I said, I've never had that. My whole life has been needing money. My whole life has been God meeting my needs according to His riches. That's been my life. What do I need worry about a rainy day? It didn't say He was going to do it according to my riches. He's going to meet my needs according to His, because He made the situation a sowing and reaping situation. And if you will look at it that way, if you make $10 a week, if you gave me $10 a week and that's all I had, I wouldn't be there very long. Would you, Hunter, consider $1, if you made $10 a week and you consider giving $1 away, that's your tithe? Would you consider that faithful in little things? Let me go over here and ask this side. If you had $10 a week, if you get $10 a week and you give $1, which is a tithe, will you be there very long?
It multiplies.
We're talking about the God factor, you guys.
Yes.
God doesn't think about zeros. Do you understand? That's you. That's your flesh and all the things you want. I wanted a brand new fancy car this spring. Brand new one. And I was praying about it, and I had enough money for it. I mean, a nice one. And when Steve Doyle talks nice, it's probably a lot different than when you guys talk nice. You know what I did? I gave it away. And my life, my farms, my construction business, my ministry, everything I have, is just multiplying. Well, what's He going to multiply you for? Because I'm a good steward. Goes in this hand, goes out this hand. I don't hoard it. Me and my wife, my 2 kids, us 4 and no more. Is that your attitude? You ain't going to go nowhere. And some people think, Steve Doyle, he's really hard and he's harsh. No, I'm not. I'm not harsh at all. Is that what you tell a general when you're just about going out in the battlefield and you got all these enemies out here with rifles and guns and everything, and he's chewing your butt out because you're not doing exactly what you need to do? Would you say, well, he's just really hard on us. I just can't believe he's such a nasty guy. And you're going to go out in the battlefield? And you're going to get shot at? Are you kidding me? You'd never make it in the military. Because that ain't the way it plays out. These men know what it's like to be out there, and they've trained you, and they taught you, and they've instructed you, and they told you how it's going to play out, and if you do it right, you might live. That's what I'm telling you. I had a Navy SEAL that worked in this company 20 years ago tell me, he said, I've served under every kind of a general you could imagine. He said, there's nobody as good a general as you are. That's what he told me. He was Navy SEAL. He did every kind of a thing you can imagine in foreign lands, and he eventually told me about it. He said, I had 10 years I had to keep it quiet. But during that 10 years, he was working here, and he started telling me some of the stories. It was incredible, stuff they did. Dang, man, they float on a rubber raft 10 miles out in the ocean, and they swim with gear on all the way to the beach, and then they walk in the beach, and they grab a hold of this No. They get on the beach and they go capture this dude.
Bad hombre.
And they grab a hold of him. And they haul him back and they swim him back out to the rubber raft. I mean, are you kidding me? Do you think their instructor said, oh, now, it's okay if you don't go ahead and swim that mile. It's okay. If you maybe could get an eighth of a mile in, we'll still make you a Navy SEAL. You just do whatever you want. You're just fine. Is that what you do? What do you think I'm calling you guys warriors? Why am I calling you guys warriors? I don't care how old you are, how young you are. I call you warriors. That's what God told me to say. I said, God, I don't even know some of these guys. He said, I didn't ask you to know them. I told you to call them warriors. I said, okay. He said, do you want to lead a bunch of school kids? You know that ain't me. If you guys don't know nothing else about me, you know that ain't me. And you want to hear the truth? And when you come to me, this truth, when you come to me, what am I going to give you? Oh, brother, man, you be being, man, that's awful rough on us, man. Can't you tell you something really nice? See, in my mind, I did. But your mind, or somebody else's mind, that ain't how they see it, because they don't know. But now you guys been in this class a while, you know. You know who I am. You know what to expect from me. You get in any kind of a trouble, you can count on me. Lord was speaking to me back there when we were sitting down. And this is what I see myself saying. I love you guys with all of my heart. I can't love you any more than to tell you the truth. That's ultimate love. And guess what else? No greater love hath any man than a man who lays down his life for his friends. You're my friends. And I just laid down my life tonight. I gave you an hour and a half of my life. I laid down my life for you. You think Steve Doyle doesn't prove himself? Steve Doyle proves himself. I'm not a wishy-washy guy, and you all know that. So when you come to me, don't ask me to be wishy-washy. I'm not interested in listening to your problems. Do you understand? If you got an issue, speak it simply, and I'll give you a solution. But I'm not going to listen to you whining and crying about some situation you're in. I'm not interested in that. Because that doesn't fix nothing. Listen to your problems and listen to you whining and crying and bawling and squalling doesn't fix nothing. But what does fix something is if I deliver something to you that you can sink your teeth into that brings you life. And life more abundantly. That's what that book says. That's what's hidden in this man's heart. And that's what I have to give you. No pussyfooting, no monkey business. It's based on experience. And I can tell you the answer. But if you don't want to listen to it, fine. I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of young kids come in my office down there, and they can't afford to build a new home, and I told them how they can fix it. I went down, I took the time, an hour, 2 hours sometimes, and went down through every single financial situation, and I explained to them how they can fix this and this and this and this and this and this. But every single time it required some sacrifice on their part. And do you know how many people I had over the course of my 47 years that listened to me? One. That's all. And 6 months later, I moved her into a brand new home. And she lives out on Fromfelder Road right now, to this day, 20 years later. Because they can't get it in their brain
They get sucked up into the United States and all the wealth talk and all the garbage talk. And God says, I want to give you wealth, but I want to give it to a good steward. And I won't give it to anybody else. Because I'm God. And I'm not going to break my rules.